So what was your name?
Ted Higginbotham, and I'm a consultant archaeologist, and I run a sort of company called Edward Higginbotham and Associates Proprietary Limited.
And Ted, here this afternoon we were uncovering some remnants of the original farm buildings on Belgenny Farm here of the original Macarthur estate, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Last year we did a test excavation and we located 2 buildings out of 3 shown on a map of the estate dated to 1840. This year this is just the second day into the dig. We've located the 3rd building that was shown on that 1840 plan, but we've also found, or we've got here 3 additional buildings that are not shown on that plan. Now, one of the buildings, which you'll see in front of you, we believe to be an earlier structure, and the one known as the Small Miserable Hut. That's a reference to Macquarie visiting the property in 1810. And he described meeting Mrs. Macarthur in what he called a small miserable hut.
And that's Governor Lachlan Macquarie.
That's right.
Yes. And I understand that you thought you found, or you maintain that you found the small miserable hut during the dig last year, but
yes,
this should confirm that is actually the case.
That's correct. So when we found 2 of the 1840s buildings last year, the 3rd one we thought was this one that we're extending the excavation, but in fact the 3rd building on the 1840s plan is actually behind you at this stage.
Okay.
So this makes it even more a better case for this being the small miserable hut, the early building, because it's the only one in the correct orientation as shown on the Conrad Martin's painting of 1835.
And so those 3 items there are your source material, is that right? The painting by Conrad Martins, the plans, and the journal entry.
That's right. So there's 3 different forms of sources. There's 3 text references to a building which was the residence of the Macarthur family until 1821. From 1821 onwards, we've got Belgenny Farm Cottage, and then 1834, 1835, you've got Camden Park House. So you've got 3 main residences. This is the first, and it's the most primitive building where they really started off establishing the estate out here, the farming estate.
And how was the dig initiated? Where did the idea come from?
The dig has been initiated by the Belgenny Farm Trust and also the educational arm of the trust, or the educational arm of Elizabeth Macarthur Agricultural Institute that's out here. So there's 2 organisations. One's the educational branch and then the Belgenny Farm Trust, but they're closely linked. So it's the Belgenny Farm Trust that has got us out here for the prime reason of extending their education program. So they thought this was the important question: where is the site of the small miserable hut that's referred to by Macquarie in 1810? So for the last 2 seasons, that was in September of last year and May this year, we're now looking to confirm the location of that original residence.
And do you know if this dig will be part of a larger plan to perhaps create some kind of a monument here, or some kind of an educational guide to the original buildings?
Right. I think the prime purpose, apart from the whole process of archaeological excavation, which will be incorporated into the education program, the site will be put on display so that any and all of the students that pass through the farm in later years will have the opportunity of coming down here and seeing the layout of the buildings that we excavated.
And how significant are these finds?
The significance lies in the fact that they belong to John and Elizabeth Macarthur. They were the ones that really established the merino wool industry in New South Wales. So the first staple crop that could be used as, not crop, but the first farm production that could be used as an export to bring in currency into the then colony. So could these possibly be the first sort of recorded farm buildings in Australia? Or no, I wouldn't claim that. Well, the importance is here that we can see the development of the estate from 1805 onwards. You've got the first house, The second set of farm buildings and farm cottages survives, and then the Camden Park House. So you can see the progression from very primitive beginnings right through to a large colonial building, a large colonial homestead on a large landholding, which was the dream of many of the people that had come out from the UK at that time.
So Ted, we have here the excavation in process. Can you just explain how the volunteers are going about digging here?
All right. Well, we're into this. This is the second day of excavation. So what we've done already is we've stripped off the turf and the turf, and we're now taking off the topsoil layers, which will take us down to the construction elements related to the buildings that we're trying to investigate. So at the bottom of the turf and topsoil, we're going to find the floor layers, the wall lines, the fireplace, brick footings and things like that. So we're in the process of doing that at the moment.
And how deep will the dig be?
Well, it's quite surprising. It's very shallow, as you can see. We've only just taken the turf off, and in some places we're down on the natural clay. In other places we're still got the topsoil, and we believe that's going to be over the different floor layers of each of these buildings. So it's very, very shallow. And had this site been consistently ploughed during the later part of the 19th century or 20th century, we would have lost most of the archaeology. So we're very lucky to have such good survival here.
And what sort of remnants and indications of original buildings are you looking for?
The thing that attracted us to this particular site was the stone rubble that was poking up through the topsoil before we even started. Now, to an archaeologist's eye, that's really a good indication of a fireplace. We were very surprised during the first season to find adjacent to that fireplace what we'd call a wall slot, but it's where a horizontal timber beam has been placed. We technically call that a base wall plate. So it's a component. The base wall plate is a component of a timber frame building. Like it would have been a slab, probably the walls would have been infilled with slab.
And will different materials be collected and taken off site for sort of processing and cataloguing, or
yes,
is it?
Absolutely. So we find all the structural elements like the nails and the bricks and the plaster and the mortar. We generally process those on site unless they're worth keeping. And then we've got all the other artefacts like the ceramics and the glass and the bits of metal, things like that.
And will some of those materials likely be displayed in public sort of museums, or?
That's right. Once they're catalogued, they come back to the farm, and the intention is to put some of them on display in the museum, which is up at the Belgenny farmstead. And that again is going to be part of the educational program.
Okay. And how many volunteers do you have working here?
We have 15 volunteers and then about 4 paid staff.
Okay.
Now, a lot of the volunteers are working at unis, like Sydney University, Macquarie University, UNE.
And is this quite an experience for them to be actually working on a dig of this significance?
It's a great opportunity for people to get more excavation experience, and we even take on people that haven't had any experience before, and it's something that a complete novice can do, and we train them up in all the tasks that they're asked to do. Yeah.
And it's a 5-day dig in total?
5 days, yes. We try and do as much as we can within that 5-day period.
Okay, thanks Ted.